Hey, we're back. This is John.
It's Paul.
And it's Eric.
And it's What If Geeks. And oh my God, it's been so long since like 5 minutes ago when we reviewed episode 4. We are going to review episode 5 of Moon Knight. This is entitled Asylum for reasons we're going to get into quickly because fuck, I think we all belong in an asylum after watching this show. Oh my God. All right. So yeah, we literally just finished reviewing episode 4, where the last thing we saw was Mark / Steven / both locked in some type of asylum after getting shot, spoiler, and they ran into a giant fucking hippo, an Egyptian hippo. And there we go. Roll credits, and now we're in episode 5. Eric, you want to start?
Sure. So I think we start on the hippo, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
They do previously on, and the hippo says hi, and then we come back to this.
Everybody screams. Yeah. So we start on the hippo. Stephen, I think, recognizes that it's an Egyptian god called Terrawet. Is that what it was? I can't remember.
Yeah, Towerette.
Towerette, something.
Towerette. We'll go with Towerette.
She's like the goddess of I don't know, women and birth or something like that in Egyptian.
Something like that, but somehow she's in an asylum.
Yeah, indeed she is. So she explains to Stephen Mark that they're actually dead, that they're in a place called Duat, which is like the underworld or whatever for the Egyptians. And she's supposed to guide them either, well, to a permanent underworld hell kind of thing, or to Field of Reeds, which is, I guess, the heaven version.
Yeah.
She tells them that
she says every one of duet, whatever is different for whoever.
Yeah.
So theirs is an asylum, and then Mark says, because we're insane.
Yeah. Basically, she tells them that the human mind can't fathom this underworld, and so they like project something that's familiar to them, which for these two, or for this one, whatever you want to say, is
which is what I said in the last episode, where I was like, in the very beginning, it happened so fast after they got shot in the tomb that I was like, oh, okay, this is a representation of the underworld. But then they stayed in that thing so long, back and forth with all the shit that was going on, that even I got a little confused, like, fuck, this might actually all be in his head.
Yeah. Well, and at some point we get the answer to a question I asked a couple episodes ago, which is, was Mark crazy before becoming the avatar of Khonshu, or did becoming the avatar of Khonshu break him in a way?
Yeah, and we will get that answer here.
Correct.
Yeah, we get this answer here. And I can honestly say, without spoiling anything coming later in our review, I actually not enjoyed, but I actually appreciated how they worked all of that into this, especially not knowing the character and not knowing how, like, because I know he's got this personality in the comics too. I don't know how they've done it in the comics, but for this, I liked it. I was like, oh, okay, it kind of makes sense.
I didn't this is like, I don't know, when we talked about Book of Boba Fett, there were several times where we said, yeah, it was weighty, but there was a lot of questions that you needed answered, right? How did he get out of the Sarlacc pit? What happened in all those intervening years? Like, that stuff needed answered. This stuff needed answered. Like, we don't know the backstory of how Mark got this split personality. We don't know this backstory, so we needed it. I just wonder, could they have done it? What would have happened if they had done this earlier?
Yeah.
And then gotten more sort of, I don't know, hero action.
More meat in the story.
Yeah.
Well, this is actually, this is the same way they did it in WandaVision, if you remember. The episode right before the finale, they did a bunch of like flashback memory stuff to explain how the character ended up here. I feel like they're borrowing from that a bit in this episode, because the whole thing is
director.
90% of it ends up being memory flashback stuff that the two of them are kind of going through together. to really reveal how the character got to where he is now.
Right. All right. So well, on those subjects, let's hold those subjects until the end after we review the episode, because those are really good discussions on how it could have been different. So, all right, let's get into the episode. We're completely fucked.
It doesn't matter. So I guess they go on to, well, Steven thinks that he's actually in a mental ward and this is bullshit. And he said, I'm going to open these doors. There's going to be patients in here, people calling bingo. He opens the doors. It's a fucking desert. They're on a boat. He's like, what the fuck? So Tawaret, God damn it.
All right.
His fucking name is too hard. She explains to them what's going on. You know, they're either going to get left in the sands or they're going to go to the field of reeds. And in order to figure out which, she has to weigh their hearts on this scales of justice or whatever it is. And so she reaches into their chests and pulls out their hearts, which are like weird. And
it was a very funny moment too, where she's like, just pardon me a second. And she reaches right into their chest and pulls their hearts out. And she's like, oh, good, it worked. I really thought I was going to explode your chest there for a second. I was like, wow, it was fucked up. But yeah, so she weighs them and the scales, she weighs the scales against the feathers. So
but they look like stone. Like they're not
they're white.
They're white and I thought they looked like stone.
Yeah, I did too. And so very, very Moon Knight-ish, white, like a white moonstone type of thing, maybe.
Sure.
But she weighs him against a feather, and I vaguely remember hearing something about that, maybe not from Egyptian mythology, because I don't know anything about it. But I remember weighing your heart against the weight of a feather or some shit like that from something. And she's got both hearts on one side and the feathers there, and they're bouncing back and forth. So she's like, no, the scales are imbalanced. So you have to figure out what the issue is by going back inside the ship, and you're going to relive whatever. And you have to make peace with whatever is going on in your heart before we get to the end of our journey, or I have to cast you out into the sands with the rest of the undead. So yay. So they go into the ship, right?
Yeah, so they go back in through the doors and then they're back in the psych ward, but it's different this time. I mean, it's the same psych ward, but when they go to each of the doors, which were previously rooms that had the sarcophagus and whatever, now they're like memories, and they're seeing like memories of each, or well, it's actually Mark's, I think it's actually all Mark's memories, if I remember right.
Well, yes, but it's also Stevens. But the thing also too with the psych ward, when you first see it in episode 4, like Paul said, it was kind of like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest meets like a beat up whatever. The next time you see it in here, it's cleaner and it's a little bit different. So I was actually wondering if the first time you see the psych ward, if that was some kind of weird vision, and then this was something real too. It was very weird. Like they're layer on top of layer in this show that's kind of fucking with you. Because this version of the psych ward is a little bit different than the last one. It was kind of hard to tell what's supposed to be real.
Yeah,
but he's back with Harrow again.
Yep.
And Harrow's talking to Mark. But this time, like now, Mark is different. He's not quite beat up or whatever. So obviously, it's a different version of Mark. And he's like, Mark, last time we talked, yada, yada, whatever. And he's like continuing on a series of visits with Mark, right? Talking about like Steven, you have to talk to Steven. You have to make peace with Steven or whatever. There's a whole bunch of shit there that's like weird.
So
yeah, go ahead.
So they hear somebody yell help and they run down the hall to a different room, but when they go inside, it's the cafeteria and it's just full of like dead bodies sitting in chairs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Mark immediately knows what it is, but Steven isn't quite catching on, but he eventually tells him it's everybody he's killed on behalf of Khonshu, right? That's
Steven realizes it. He's like, is this everybody you killed?
And in all the things, it's like Steven's trying to piece together what he's seeing of Mark's background.
Right.
Right. So, and Steven's trying to get him away from certain things. Like he's always like, nope, don't look at that. Nope, don't go in there. Nope.
Yeah, Mark keeps pushing him away.
Yeah.
I mean, to some degree, it makes sense, and it kind of plays out the way you'd expect. But I mean, remember, Steven is sort of the split personality that doesn't have to deal with all the shit that Mark knows, right? He doesn't know anything. He lives so it's like Mark's trying to protect him from remembering those memories that, you know.
Yeah, well, when Steven asked, like, is this everybody? And Mark's like, yeah, yes. He nods his head, yes. But then a little boy shows up at the end of the hallway, and Steven's like, oh, hello. And the kid's standing there looking at him, and Mark's like, don't talk to him. And the kid goes to run, and Steven goes to chase him.
But he's also like, why would there be a little kid in among all these people that you've killed?
Right. So, and at first you're like, oh damn! Some weird casualty out of like one of Mark's hits,
like an accident. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what's bothering Mark. No, it's much worse. It's okay.
No, yeah, it's way worse.
So Steven gets ready to go chase him, but as they go down the hallways, they see another memory. They see a bunch of different memories. They see a couple of things that happened throughout the show, right? But then they stop at one door, and they both see their body standing on a street drinking out of a flask, and Steven says, what is this? I don't remember this. Do you remember this? And Mark just kind of like pauses for a second and then nods his head. And for a split second, I really thought that, again, that was going to be the third personality. Like, he really didn't remember it.
Yeah.
But it turns out,
because I expected him to say that's not me, and
yeah,
to be the third guy.
So did I. I really thought that this was going to be Jake, but he just says, "Yeah, we got to go. Let's go." So they leave again, and I guess Steven sees that kid again, right? Is that what happens? They run further down the hallway. He sees him because he catches up with the kid and locks Mark out of that memory.
Yep.
And Mark is like petrified at that point. He's like, "Don't go in there. Let me in." And Steven locks the fucking door and goes after this kid. And that's when like all hell breaks loose in this episode as far as memories go.
Yeah, something happened in the middle there because Mark follows the kid without Steve first. And that's when you get to see what happened, and that the kid was his brother, I assume. Yeah, it had to be his brother.
Well,
yeah, so they go to he follows them through the memory, and they're in the backyard. There's a mom and dad, and
yeah,
older
Steven
Mark
follows him first and sees his mother because he's like, "Mom," and Mark was yelling outside the door, "Let me in." Mark finds another way around and gets into the memory. But Steven watches him and his brother because he says, "I had a brother." That was the key to Steven. Like, he didn't know this kid existed. And they're doing whatever, they're hanging out, and they say, dinner's almost done, whatever. And the kids say, we're going to go play real quick. And they're like, all right, just come back soon. And they run off. And that's when Mark catches up, because Mark catches up on the other side of that memory where they're going into a cave to play whatever. And it's starting to rain. And little Mark tells his brother, it's okay, come on, keep going. And Steven's following them, then realizes it's raining really hard as they go to this cave. The water's starting to run into the cave. So Steven starts to panic and say, boys, you got to get out. And he tries to catch up with them. And that's when Mark catches up, but literally catches up to like his own memory, like right there in the cave as it's flooding. So Steven's on the other side of the wall, watching the two boys, trying to help them. And Mark is inside his own memory, watching his brother again, basically drown and die. And so that's the memory Mark was trying to keep from Steven.
So
it gets worse.
Well, I mean, ultimately, though, that's what we arrive at here is that boy is sort of one of his victims, not a victim, but you know what I mean.
Right, but in Mark's head, is
responsible for killing.
Right, he's responsible for
Yeah. Yeah, because there's a payoff to that later, but yeah, in Mark's own head, that was like his first victim, basically. So, which is why he was in that room to begin with. But then we cut to the funeral.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They go into the funeral memory, and then you see his mom there, and she says something like, "I want him back," and then they start this whole like going up this stair thing, and it's like maybe every birthday or every year something is a
Yeah,
different
well, because yeah,
floor.
initially in the funeral thing, they show his younger self coming down the stairs, and the mother saying, "What are you doing here? This is all your fault."
Yeah.
And that's where you realize what Mark's childhood was really like. Was the mother blamed him for his brother's death, and basically chased him back up the stairs at the funeral, and then you cut to like his next birthday, his father calling for his mother to come downstairs to come have cake with their son, and he's like, all right, well, she's just not ready yet. Let her stay. It'll just be me and you this year. And they blow out the candles together. And then it comes to the next year, and the mother's drunk, telling him, your brother's death was all your fault, blah blah blah. Even like right there when he's supposed to be having his birthday cake, talking shit to the kid, and the kid runs off and hides. And this is like you said, it's a very cool effect of Stephen going up the same set of stairs to the next level of memory and it getting progressively worse. And after he goes past from that one, when Mark runs away and runs up to his room, Stephen runs up to chase the younger self. And when he gets into the room, that's this version of Mark keeps telling him, stop, don't go up there.
Oh, Mark definitely tries to stop him from going in the bedroom because that's like the next horrible thing.
Yeah, he's like, you can't go in there. And Stephen winds up getting in there. And Mark tells him, we have to leave right now. And you see the younger Mark sitting there, and like he's knocked some stuff over, and his mother starts banging on the door. And little Mark is sitting there, kind of rocking himself, saying, that's not my mother, that's not my mother. And then that's the first time, well, not the first time, but you realize this is his first time doing the dissociative personality thing where he rocks back and he makes Stephen. This is where he makes Stephen. And he opens his eyes, and in a perfect British accent, he's like, look at the state of this room. And he starts putting all the pencils back and cleaning up or whatever. And then the mother breaks in, and current Mark and current Stephen are there watching all of this. And current Mark is trying to grab Stephen and pull him out. Like, you don't need to see this. And the mother kicks in the door and is like, you don't hide from me, and blah, blah, blah. And she grabs a belt and goes in there. So obviously going in to kick the shit out of this kid. And Mark pulls Stephen out of there. You don't need to see this.
Well, that's when he looks at the poster on the wall and he sees the Stephen Grant, Dr. Stephen Grant.
Stephen Grant, right.
That's the moment he realizes that Mark is for sure the real one, and that he was the one that was created, and this was why.
And he says, I made you so that you had the good life. You didn't have to, right? You got to live. You got to think
live
that
with
mom
a
was
good
great.
mother and a good, yes. Yeah, I made you so that you could know mom was good and this and that, whatever. But at the same time, though, Stephen's one that took all the beatings too. If you think about it, Mark just like went back into his own self and didn't have to take the ass whoopings.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, they wanted him back on the street, and Stephen says something to him like, what the fuck? There's something there because Mark was like, that was the whole point of you.
Yeah.
And so that's when Stephen was like,
The point of me.
yeah, the point of me, like, it was basically like, he admits he made him, and Stephen's taken aback by the fact like that I'm just a creation to you. I'm not like, we've had these moments here recently, and all of a sudden like I'm nothing. But yeah, they go a little bit further because that's when they get further into he gets older, he leaves home, and then the mother dies, and the father tries to call him to tell him like, we're going to have her ceremony, and Mark shows up outside, and that's that memory that they see in that window of him standing outside on the street drinking out of a flask. Because then you cut into that memory, and the father is at the window and sees him and tries to wave him in, and he shakes his head, and he goes to leave. And when he walks away, he collapses into the street crying, and Stephen takes over and tries to call his mother. And we flash to now Mark and Stephen, and Mark says, that's when, after mom's death is when our two lives started to bleed over. That's where they started to have all those problems, and that's where we kind of come into this entire show.
So you're led to believe that from at some point, Mark stopped needing Stephen, right? Probably when he runs away or does, takes off. And so between that time and the funeral, there's no Stephen, right? Stephen comes back in that moment where he's crying in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
And to sort of ease the pain, that's when Stephen comes back. And that's when Stephen gets an apartment and gets the job and does all the stuff. And
yes,
right,
yeah, because they explained while Mark was able to do all those different missions over the years and blah, 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 which is what we were talking about earlier about in our previous reviews of how this whole relationship functioned. Now we know. Stephen really wasn't functional from youth until his mother's death.
Yeah.
And came back again.
So Stephen, Mark must have been doing some of the, but later in a minute, I think we'll get to the point where he says he's explaining his life as a mercenary, and Mark says going AWOL in a fugue state got me kicked out of the military, and so I had to do something. And so you wonder, that must have been, I guess, at the part where Stephen existed, and he would go back and forth between Mark and Stephen at some point. So in the Stephen personality, he disappears from the army.
Yeah. It starts to establish that on life. Yeah. Which again, now the more you sit there and actually like break it down, the more it makes sense, and the more it's like, oh yeah, they really did some thought into this, how it all works. But this is the point now too where Mark actually kind of starts to tell Stephen like he needs him. Like, like up until now, when they've been dead, they've been fighting for control. And now we're at a point where now that we're basically letting leaving the book open and showing everything. And every time they come out of the memories, the scales are a little more balanced. It's because the two of them are starting to realize, okay, we're part of the same whole and we need to work together. And even Mark has kind of come into a point where he's like, I can't do this without you, kind of, Stephen, maybe not so much at that point. He's just like, he's trying to figure out what his whole purpose of this thing is. Yeah. But he realizes that he's made up and he's not, he's still got a lot of animosity toward Mark, and that's where the scales are not quite balanced perfectly, right? Yep. So, but once we get to this point where Mark is like, look, this is what it was, and I tried to make it so you had a good life, but I needed you in there to deal with this. And then our lives started to bleed over. Then they come back out because it feels like everything stopped. And it's like, we feel like we're running around. And they come outside and they talk to Towerette, and she's like, we come to the end. The scales aren't balanced, and now the dead coming. Sorry, yeah, exactly. Sorry, boys. I was rooting for you. She says, "Sorry, boys, I'm rooting for you." But and then the dead start to rise out of the sand, which is a really cool effect. They should have used this back in The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. But and they start climbing over the ship, and it's again like 3 people that Mark Spector killed.
Oh, hold on. We're missing a point. There's a scene where Mark is in with Dr. Harrow, and then
I keep forgetting that they keep cutting back to that too.
Yeah, he comes back and it's Steven. And he's like, oh, I thought I might never get to talk to Steven again. That's great.
Yeah.
And then he says something about his mother being dead. And he's like, my mother's not dead. I talk to my mother every day. And Steven's like, and the doctor's like, oh, you're right. My mistake. Sorry. We'll get her on the phone.
Let's call her right now.
And he's like, don't. And he's very softly like, please don't. Like, she's not going to pick up. She screams the calls like it's not going to happen.
Right.
And he's, no, it's fine. I got the number. We have it on file. Hey, call, blah, blah. And he holds the phone, and that's when Steven.
Well, he does this whole thing where he pretends to talk to his mother.
Mhm.
Mrs.
We said that in episode 1. We're like, oh yeah.
Remember, because we kept saying like he keeps leaving messages for her. I said it.
We said in episode 1, like
he's dead.
His mom's gonna be dead, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
We said that. We all said that in the beginning.
So Harrow, in this vision/reality or whatever the fuck it is, tells Steven like, no, I'll call her. And he calls and he talks to her like, I've got Steven right here. He wants to talk to you. And he holds out the phone and says, here, Steven, talk to your mother. And Steven shakes his head and says, I can't. My mother's dead.
Yeah.
And then it gets just quiet enough for you to hear a faint dial tone. So there was never anybody on the other side of the phone.
Yep.
Right. But
And
again,
I think that's the point. The boat. I think that's the point where the
that's
thing
what
rocks.
the boat,
And,
yeah, it rocks, and he's back with both him and Steven.
Yeah.
And again, the show is jumping back and forth from all those things so much that you don't know what's real.
Yeah. Also, in the middle of this was the flashback where he became Moon Knight. That also happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
It shows Steven how he became Moon Knight, because he says he shows him the scene where Layla's father was killed with all the archaeologists, and Steven says like, this is what happened, this is what you did, and Mark's like, no, he's like, I didn't do this. I was on a mission with a squad and my commander, and then he says, Bushman, aha, I knew they were gonna bring him up at some point. Says he went rogue, he went a little nuts, started executing everybody. And then he goes, when I tried to stop him, he shot me.
Yeah, he's like, I'm over there.
All the dead bodies, including Layla's father. And then Steven says, well, what are you? And Mark points, and they go over the edge of the rift, and there's this giant tomb-looking pyramid thing, and you see Mark's body crawling to a set of steps, and that's where he first encounters Khonshu. And they do the whole thing where he's getting ready to kill himself, and Khonshu talks to him, and just like Khonshu, what a waste, and basically convinces him, you'll be my hand, you'll be my vengeance, and blah, 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 whatever. And Steven tells Mark, like, he's manipulating you. He manipulated you into this. And Mark's like, no, he gave me a purpose, whatever. So, yeah, and then we go back to, this is another point I wanted to make. Before we get to the Dead Rising, Steven and Mark have that moment where Steven tells him, like, Khonshu manipulated you. And then when they talk about the death of Mark's brother, Steven tells him, he's like, that wasn't your fault. You were a kid. And Mark's like, no, it wasn't. And Steven's like, no, it was not your fault. So again, is one of the things Mark made him for. Steven lives up to, and sits him down and explains to him, like, you were a kid, it wasn't your fault your brother died. You have to let that go. So there's that moment. They have that moment in this show. And then the ship runs aground, they can't go anywhere, and the dead come out of the fucking sand and start attacking. So Mark tells Steven, okay, hide. And Steven goes behind the wheel, and Mark starts fighting them pretty well, and just gets kind of overpowered by a bunch of these things because they're dead. And as they're overpowering them, he tells Steven, just run, and Steven's like, no, you got this. And Steven goes, no, wait. He's like, if you got this, I'm you, so I got this. And he goes and fucking picks up a bat and starts attacking all these fucking sand creatures, and actually like really does a good job of fighting them off, and like beats the fuck out of all these things. But then what happens? Somebody take over.
So at this point, he starts. Steven's rocking the boat back and forth. We're not sure what's going to happen. He saves Mark a couple times, but as he lunges at one, one comes up, grabs Mark from the back. Steven goes to help him out, and he ends up falling over.
Yep. He goes over.
Yeah. And Mark screaming for Steven. He's yelling to turn the boat around. Steven's laying there for a second. He gets up and starts to try to run, and he's got that like heavy leg, you're having that dream where you're running but you can't. He starts to sink into the sand a little bit, and he starts to become stand, essentially.
Because Tara tells them that the dead are going to take you and you're going to be stuck here forever.
Yeah.
And makes it sound very bad. And well, now we find out. So so Steven gets stuck in the sand.
Steven becomes, and Mark screaming, and then you see in the back, the scale, once that happens to Steven, the scales balance.
Right.
And Steven and Mark is able to go to the land of the reeds, or the whatever that is.
It happens immediately.
Yeah. And he's in there, and that's Egyptian heaven. And at some point before this, the hippo lady says, you see these blue streaks start coming from the sky, and she's like, oh, this is bad. Something's happening. People are going before their time.
The souls are being sent before their time.
Yeah.
And then they tell her, that's Harrow. Do you see why we have to go back?
We got to go back. So she turns the boat around to take them to Osiris's gate, but Osiris's gate is closed. And that's when the
dead attack, and Steven apparently dies, and Mark goes to the field of reeds.
Yeah, and boom, scene.
Yeah, end episode.
Yep.
And again, we are left with what the fuck.
Yeah.
Now we're at the end of episode 5. We have one episode left. One.
Yep.
All right. Before we get into speculation, one, how did everybody enjoy the episode? I'm not going to say I didn't enjoy it. I really liked it. But this is one of the few times, one of the very rare times I've watched anything remotely associated with Marvel and been like, I have no fucking clue what's going on, but I like it. Like, at least normally I know kind of what's going on. I don't know what the fuck they're doing anymore. And I'm still enjoying it. But to Paul's point earlier, I don't know how we get through this next episode and have some kind of payoff. Like, at least now, like, they mentioned Bushman. So if they were to do another season, you have something to lead into. We can get into that after this. But what did you guys think of this episode?
I mean, like I said, I think at the beginning of the last one, I'm kind of confused. It's weird. I do hope there's a payoff, but there is a lot to close out still.
Yeah.
Harrow, Amit, are we bringing Khonshu back? Is Mark or Steven really gone? I assume he is. What about this Jake or this other personality?
Right.
Right? Where's Bushman come into all this? Is he gonna pop up? Like, I'm just like, how do you do this in an hour? Or less than an hour?
Yeah, you're gonna have about maybe an hour. If they really push the next episode, you have an hour tops to do.
I mean, it could be longer, right?
This episode was 40 minutes.
It could be 90 minutes.
What's the longest episode they've done?
What's that?
What's the longest episode they've done in any one of their series?
In any series?
Yeah, including Star Wars. Fuck it. Any I mean, I'll even take like the Mickey Mouse fucking Christmas special. Was
I
that
think-
90 minutes? We'll go with
I
that.
think-
I mean, it's not going to be 2 hours and 50 minutes like the Batman.
Yeah, it was the
We don't know
Hawkeye.
that.
It was the Hawkeye season finale. I'm pretty sure that ran a full hour.
Hmm.
I really think that was the longest one.
All right, even if they do an hour, because I kind of hope they do. We're pushing. We're pushing shit here. All right, so I think we all agree this episode kind of left us with.
I'm struggling because it's cool character background. It's we needed to know, right, how Mark comes to get this dissociative personality stuff. We needed to know, right, how he becomes the Avatar. We need to know a bunch of this stuff. We needed to know the secrets. It's been alluded to that Mark had something to do with killing Layla's father. Like, we get all that. But we got a lot to do in an hour. And
Yeah, like
we
you
go
get
another
this episode, so
we go another episode without, I mean, we see the costume, but only for a second, and only in the sort of, this is the origin story.
flashback thing, yeah.
Yeah. So there's no real, seeing the hero and his powers. It's just, I'm just kind of like, ugh, we got a lot to do here. I didn't dislike it, but I'm like, we got to get to it.
Yeah, there's a lot.
So while you were gone, I did go back and look. The two longest episodes in any series so far were the season finale of Hawkeye, which was almost exactly an hour, and episode 5 of Falcon and Winter Soldier, which was also an hour. So that's it. Those are the longest ones. Most of them have been under 50 minutes, 40 minutes, something in that range. So I guess that's what we're looking at most.
I'm hoping for an hour because damn.
And I said the other shows at this point, we felt like, okay, we're ready for the battle. Next to last episode of Hawkeye, we knew it was coming. Kingpin had showed up already, right? Gather the forces. Here's the plan, right? And you spend an hour in the battle. It feels like we're far from that.
Yeah, no, we're way far from that. Like you said, we don't even have Khonshu back yet. Night. I got it. Yeah, we don't even have Khonshu back yet, and now what we doing? I really thought, especially after he dropped out like 2 episodes ago when he said, "Tell Mark he's gonna come save me." I figured we would have been here by now.
I thought we were doing a rescue mission, yeah.
And we are not there at all. Yeah, so all right, so speculation. You have to, in the next episode, somehow quickly resurrect Mark. Because, all right, so Steven, as far as we know, Steven is dead. Steven's
So they
gone.
established that you can leave through the gates of Osiris. So that's got to be his way out.
Right.
But we know from episode 3, because we saw Osiris's avatar, that he's pretty much on Ethan Hawke's side. What the fuck's his name?
Harrow's side.
Harrow's side. He didn't want to
So
hear
yeah,
it.
so they have to have that argument, right? So they have to have an argument to get him back. If Steven is truly gone, which does answer something I was contemplating earlier. If you go beyond season, just one season of this, if it's not a mini series, it's more than one season. While the multiple personality thing, his personalities are fun to be involved with. To go long term with that would get complicated, right? So to kind of maybe do that in the beginning and then effectively show how Steven helps him become a better hero, and then he moves on from there, I could work with that. You know what I mean? But because now you've actually, like I said earlier, I was curious to see if they do a season 2, are they going to set up, all right, this Ethan Hawke's character of Harrow is a villain now, and then they set up him going after Bushman and blah, blah, blah in the next season. They've mentioned Bushman now, which is actually a perfect setup for another season. We'll get into that in a second.
Or a movie.
Or a movie. Yes, they will get there. We'll get that discussion. Because you have now Steven is, for all intents and purposes, Steven's gone. Mark is stuck in the underworld, needs to find a way back in order to stop Harold. That's where we're at now. So now in this last episode, he's gonna come back, rescue Khonshu, and stop Harold. That's a lot to do. It's a lot to do. I think I have faith in Kevin Feige. I have faith in Marvel. So far, they've been able to pull it off. This is just one where I'm like, you're pushing my limits here. I think they're gonna pull it off in the end. I'm hoping they'll set up a movie, because I can see. Because that was something I was going to propose to you guys. Do you see this series moving forward into multiple seasons? And if so, are they able to keep somebody like Oscar Isaac in that role? Or do they move it into a movie and start to blend in, like I said earlier, the Midnight Suns and all that darker Marvel stuff, right? Because there's a way, I think, if they wanted to do another season of this, but they couldn't keep Oscar Isaac, basically because they've been playing with the mythology of Khonshu and all this other shit, I bet there's a way where they can take the character of Mark Spector, like his spirit, Khonshu's powers, somehow put him into the body of a lesser known actor and continue the series on. You know what I'm saying? Like if they wanted to. I don't think
not shown the. I don't think that's how they're going to get down. They haven't shown that that's what they want to do. I think they like the idea of telling defined stories like this, and I don't know that Moon Knight lends itself in this Marvel Cinematic Universe to being on a team with others. I think this universe feels self-contained. I mean, I think I've said this before. There's not even like, we don't drive down the street and see a kid in a Thor t-shirt. Like I know that there was a book about Asgard on one of the things, but there's no
yes, because I was going to bring that up where
obvious
other YouTube channels are like trying to make these associations with, does this connect to Thor?
Yeah.
Love and Thunder or whatever. I'm like, no.
But there's not like
in those books.
Right. And there's not even like, the Rogers the Musical's London debut is like there's nothing
right
related. So I think they like the idea of telling this start and end story. Maybe you could get a movie, but what do we do? Maybe, I don't know, but I don't think so, and I don't think you're going to get Oscar Isaac. So I don't think. I'd be surprised if you got him for another season, and so I think this is where it ends.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, again, and from the start of this thing, I've said, I don't know what it is about Moon Knight, but there's something about the character that I really like, even though I really don't know anything about him. It's just his look. There's something about his look that I really like. And like, I've always wanted him to be a bigger hero within Marvel, as far as like maybe Marvel's version of Batman. And he was kind of always hinted at being that, but not really. And I was always hoping he would be that, but he never really caught on. So I kind of still want to see them do something with it more here too. But at this point with this show, I'm kind of okay with them just ending it when it's done. And I agree. I do not see an actor like Oscar Isaac signing on for more than this series. I could see it if somehow they pushed it to, all right, it's a movie deal, even possibly a multi-movie deal, depending on what their vision is, where he does basically become the MCU version of Batman, where he's running around New York City doing the same thing Batman does, kind of. And this first movie is him going after Bushman and whatever. I could kind of see that going on, but not jumping to a movie. I don't see them getting Oscar Isaac to come back.
Yeah. The other issue I think they have is he straight up kills people, and they don't have that dark hero, right? They don't have that dark hero. They don't have an anti-hero in this cinematic universe yet, right? There's no mutants, so there's no Wolverine. There's nobody who is outright just killing people as a good guy, unless I'm missing somebody. But
Yet, like you said, they also have not tied him directly into the rest of the MCU, which could also, honestly, could also be simply a way for Kevin Feige to play around and dance around with, how do I work Deadpool into let's start getting into a more violent character, but not quite Deadpool.
Yeah.
It could be that too. It could be just him like paving the way, kind of massaging fans into the idea of some heroes kill, and then getting into more of the darker shit. Because again, spoiler alert for Eternals that none of you saw. The end of Eternals, you had Dane Whitman going to pick up the Black Sword, and you heard the voice of Blade, who even in the old 90s Wesley Snipes era was a rather dark character. He was killing vampires left and right. That's his whole point. He kills vampires. Now they're gonna do Blade with Marshall Ali. Is that right? Yeah.
Mhm.
So they're bringing Blade back. So again, they are kind of touching on this darker side of it.
Well,
Which is very, very funny, because Disney dances this line of, are we family friendly? Are we extremely woke? Are we we don't know what the fuck we are anymore. So they play around with this thing, especially with the Marvel stuff. So I'm wondering where they're gonna fall with all this.
you know, you just mentioned Blade, Moon Knight, Doctor Strange, Ghost Rider, Punisher. You have the Midnight Suns.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you could lead into a Midnight Suns team-up movie. But again, like to Paul's point, up until this point, we haven't seen this side of Marvel yet. But they're also kind of dipping their toe in the water. Now it's whether or not the rest of the fans.
Strange is here. Strange is here. Blade is cast.
Yeah, no, Doctor Strange is here. Blade is
Moon Knight's
cast.
here. Blade is cast, right?
And
now they had the Punisher series.
Listen, the biggest pop they got out of that whole announcement was when Marshall Ali walked out with that Blade hat. That was the biggest fucking pop they got. Like, they lost, all the fans lost their shit when Kevin Feige had the Blade logo come up.
But they even had a Punisher series, but they canceled it.
It was on Netflix.
But they canceled it only because they were launching their own streaming service. So
yeah, but now
it wouldn't be that hard to come back.
All of that is on Disney Plus now. So again, are we going to a point where now we're getting a completely different conversation? Are we going to a point where Disney is starting to embrace a little more adult-ish, grown-up type themes, where you can get some of this shit into these movies, which I'm all for. But I mean, you've got, to Paul's point, 10 plus years of history in a certain world. Can you massage it? And I think Kevin Feige can. but can you massage it all into a cohesive unit, or do you do separate universes kind of thing?
He's already said this is part of the MCU, so even though
Right.
it's Egypt and UK, but
Yeah, you haven't really seen anything out of it, but it is
Yeah.
part of it. Right.
yeah, no, I think that might be it, John. That might be
I
it.
think
John-
this is
John-
their way of massaging it all in, little by little, to the point where you're getting more adult themes in there.
Yeah, John Bernthal was the guy that played Punisher on that series, and he is
Yeah.
apparently willing to come back. He said, "I'm looking at a little interview." So, and then there was a rumor that Norman Reedus had been cast as Ghost Rider, so maybe that's it.
Oh my God. You know, I look at Norman Reedus' Ghost Rider.
He'd be really good.
I say nothing against Nicolas Cage, but Jesus Christ. I was only happy that they made Ghost Rider. Nicolas Cage, wow. I mean, like, thank God they made Ghost Rider when they made it, but Jesus, I mean, Nicolas Cage is Nicolas Cage, and you know, like, he just made that movie his own thing. I would love to see Norman Reedus as Ghost Rider. I think that'd be epic.
He started that rumor when he posted some fan art of himself as Johnny Blaze.
Yeah. This is how this shit starts, dude.
It's a boss move.
Yep. All right, so we've beaten up this episode because this episode beat us up. So I think we're done with this episode. Lastly, we are today is April 28th, so you should get this weekend. We'll be back for the finale of Moon Knight. But before we get into all that, last thing, we are very quickly coming up on Doctor Strange Into the Multiverse of Madness. Show of hands, who's got their tickets? I'm going May 7th at 5:10 p.m. Thank you very much. Ironically, May 7th, 5:10 p.m. happened to be one of the few spots where, because Heather and I like to go together with Noah and whatever of our older kids can go to watch these Marvel movies, and our schedule just is horrendous lately. So it's one of the Saturday evenings and one of the few days we can actually watch something together. And I got on Cinemark that we like to go to, like our favorite little theater there, and the same exact seats that we've watched all the major movies in lately in IMAX or their version of IMAX XD, right? We watched Ghostbusters and Endgame and whatever. All those seats were available at 5:10 p.m. And I texted her. I was like, "What do you think?" She was like, "Yeah." So we got our same exact fucking seats that we always get. Same spot. It's like a ritual for our family. We're going right to the same theater, same spot. Go watch this movie. Let's just kind of real quick speculate on Doctor Strange. Dude, what the fuck is going on with this movie? Have you guys seen like all the shit that's been out as far as trailers and shit?
Mhm.
I haven't seen the late. I know there's a final trailer. I haven't seen that one yet, but
Yeah, there's like a final
I've
trailer.
seen the other
where
ones.
Mordo says to Doctor Strange, "You're being brought before the Illuminati." So he name drops the Illuminati. And there's a thing there where, like, when you see the TV spot, it's like a zoom in on his face where he's like us right here. But then if you watch the YouTube version, it's panned back a little bit. And Paul, he's flanked on either side by those Ultron bots that you see leading Strange up. So we think they're Ultron.
Right.
No, they are clearly Ultron bots. Like you can see Ultron's face in the bots. But they also still look like the superior Iron Man armor that we talked about.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, they're totally like Iron Man is a part of the fucking Illuminati, and he's built them to protect the Illuminati. Because that's like that whole thing there. They're flanking Mordo, and then you see them fighting, and like Wanda decapitates some of them, and yeah, so they are definitely there to protect Iron Man. So he's in this movie. Spoiler alert, it's Tom Cruise.
Yeah, right.
So I am so fucking excited for this goddamn movie. I can't wait. you fuckers better get your tickets.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you're gonna have to wait if you want to review it
I
together.
know 'cause you're going out the door.
I'm here. I'm here next week. We could do the season finale, but then I'm out the week of the 9th and the week of the 16th. I got conferences to go to, so I won't be here.
Well, we're gonna have to figure out.
We'd have to do it on the 26th, probably.
Well, no, because I leave the 25th. We're going on our cruise, so we're actually probably gonna have to. You two watch it somewhere in between the 7th and then right before I leave, we can record early and drop our review of it. Otherwise, we're not gonna get it out.
So like the 24th or something.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, because we fly out 25th. So damn. Otherwise, we're not doing it until June. Which I mean would be par for the course for us, you know.
Yeah.
By that point, Paul has seen it, so you know.
I might be able to do it on the 19th, maybe. Like that Thursday. The conference ends at like a little after lunch, and it's in Tampa, so I should be home. I don't know. I mean, I gotta go pack up my shit and whatever, but
All right, cool. Well, yeah, we can talk about all that offline. I just figured I'd bring it up.
although Becca's probably gonna beat me up if I've gone all week and I come back and do a podcast. But
It's all good. We'll figure it out. All right, that's cool. We'll discuss it more offline. But I just want to kind of bring up Doctor Strange before we sign off. All right. Anybody got anything left from Moon Knight before we get into the season finale? No, me either. I don't know what the fuck is going on anymore.
We just got to get there.
Yeah, please. All right. Well, let us know what you thought of the episode. If you're as confused as us, because we don't know what the fuck's going on anymore. Like, subscribe, ring a bell. Hit us up at whatifgeeks.com, whatifgeeks@gmail.com, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I was trying to think of something funny to say about Moon Knight, but I couldn't think of it. So it left me. Just let us know what you thought, and we will catch you next week for the season finale. And hopefully it builds to something. That's it. Good night, Tony.
Good night, Sand Zombies.
good night, Stephen Grant. Maybe forever.
I knew it was coming.